Hi guys, this is Tina with Rehatch Designs, and I thought I would come to you and do a quick video of kind of my process and doing my journal covers. So this is just something that I go through when I'm kind of designing a journal, and I was sitting here for about a good 30 minutes or so playing with some stuff, and I thought, I really ought to just turn on the camera, because these are the kind of things that if you're new to journaling, you're going to go through, and you might as well just see it raw and not staged or anything like that. So this is the disaster on my desk, that not including what's around it that you can't see. But I just thought I would do this and let you guys see kind of what, I go through, and give you an idea, of just kind of the process. So right now what I'm working through is our cover that we had on our journal that we did for our Valentines. And I don't know if y'all watched my haul video. I got this really amazing fabric, this vintage fabric, and I'm working with different trims and things I have to kind of design my cover. And the reason I do that is that we had gotten to the point on a tutorial where we glued our cover and got it ready, and I've sewed around it and everything. But part of the reason I do that is I also a lot of times sew in other elements, and I kind of have to do that before I can move to the next step. So I wanted to show you guys what I go through. Okay, first of all, on our cover that we did in the tutorial, we did a flip type thing, kind of like this on this, where it would fold over. And I wasn't going to post that tutorial, but I realized the tutorial itself is fine. It's just that later what happened is I looked at the cover and I realized by having the flap come over, it was basically covering up a lot of this design, and I really didn't want to do that. So I decided to take the flap part off. Basically what I did is I took the last 3 inches of where the flap was, this part right here, and I just cut it off. And then I went ahead and rounded my edges like I did in the tutorial to make it match the other side. Well, then I decided I wasn't going to waste that piece. This was the flap that I cut off. I just went ahead and sewed it on and decided that I'm going to use that for a little tuck on the other side. So that's what I'm going to do with that. And I sewed that on. I sewed all the way around my cover. I decided I'd put a pocket in here and sewed around that. So that's where I'm at. And I'm just kind of deciding on laces and trims, because there may be some trim and stuff that I want to sew on rather than glue on, and I would have to do that at this point. So anyway, just to give you an idea, what I think I'm going to do. And I also, I always go over a little over and kind of design the whole thing. And of course it changes constantly. And, I honestly couldn't tell you how many times I've moved stuff around on this already. So anyway, that's where I'm at with this. So I'm just going to show you what my next steps would be on this. And then however long it takes, and then after that, I think I'm going to skip the part where we sew in our cover or our signature, because I just did a tutorial on that, and this is basically going to be exactly the same as we did. And let me get that other one over here so you can see, which if you guys haven't seen this in a while, you'll notice I changed the cover up a little here too, and I'll probably change it before it's all done. Refer back to the tutorial on this, and I'll have it linked, because it is going to be basically the identical size and the identical type of cover. So as far as sewing in your signatures, it's going to be the same. It's going to be 2 signatures, and we would sew them in exactly the same. And when we're done, I'll cover the you know, the threads and the binding, because I usually always do that. But anyway, refer back to that and it'll be exactly the same. That way you don't have to kind of rewatch all that. Anyway, getting back to the cover, I had put a red interior on this because I kind of want to play up the red and pink. And I know it seems kind of loud, but I'm going to mix those two together. And so I was kind of going through all my little laces and things, and I just couldn't find the right color. I had this pale pink lace, and you know, it looked okay, but it really didn't pick up the other pink colors. And then I had this other pink. Where did it go? This other pink, and it was too, I didn't really like that. It just didn't, to me, it just, you know, I didn't like all the sequins, I guess. Although, you know, it's pretty loud, but, you know, I think it would still, it would work, I guess. I mean, I don't know, maybe I will use it. I'm changing my mind as we speak right here. But anyway, I did want to show you something. I came to the conclusion that I didn't really have the right color pink. It was either hot pink or it was too pale. So I wanted to show you how I came to the color that I decided I wanted to use. Okay, I decided I wanted to use this lace on the side, and then this lace is going to eventually cover our where we sew in our signatures. And I kind of thought this was something that you guys should see, because when I first started junk journaling, I was trying to buy lace, all different kinds of colors and whatever. And you know, I would always end up disappointed, because unless you do it in person, now that's different, but if you do it online or whatever, it never turns out to be the color that you think it's going to be, and you get stuck with, you know, all these different laces, and they just don't work. So anyway, let me just show you what I did to come up with my color. And the thing is, I can never usually do two the same. I make my own alcohol ink spray, and I do that basically with different markers. I just take permanent markers and I take the nib out, and I'll do a whole tutorial on that. I buy these containers, and I have a ton. I have more than I'll ever need, but it's just always cheaper to buy things in quantity. And then I have all this stuff, and I'm like, I don't know. Have to figure. I'm gonna have to probably open an Etsy store and start selling stuff, because I have to get some stuff out of here. But anyway, so what I do is I will just take the nib and put it in here and fill it up with alcohol. And when I first started doing it, I would get like the, you know, 100% or 90% alcohol, because that's what a tutorial said to do. But then later on, I just did dollar store tutorial alcohol, and it worked just fine, worked the same. So I save yourself some time and money, because it's harder to find that other stuff. Anyway, so I let it soak in here basically and overnight, and I won't go through that whole process now, but that's how I make my own alcohol ink, okay? And the reason you want alcohol ink and you don't want to just put it in water and you need a permanent marker is that if you have a nylon type trim, it's not going to take to the color very well. If it's a water-based type dye, it won't work as well. The alcohol ink, it absorbs it quickly. The process is quickly, and what's really great about it is if you all decide, oh, I need this lavender, you know, and I need it this color or whatever, you can do it and have it in a matter of minutes. So, you know, you don't have to run to the store to go get what you want. Anyway, I'm going to do it with this piece, and I'm going to try and match this one. You can't always, that's the bad part. You can't always get it exactly the same, but you can get it pretty close. The first thing I usually do, and I say usually because sometimes I don't, if I'm going to dye lace, I take a little piece off and I test it. It's kind of like dyeing your hair. You know how they say to cut your hair and test it, and then we always don't do that, do we? And what you'll find out is different laces, like here's this piece here, and I'm going to try this too. They will take the ink differently, okay? So I will take this, and the first thing I do when I'm going to dye lace is I spray the actual lace. And the reason you do that is because this color will absorb quickly. Now this is, I don't spray it with water. This is my nasty alcohol bottle. If you've watched me for any period of time, you'll realize this is a constant thing that I use. This is just filled up with the alcohol from that I get from the dollar store, and I use this to clean things all the time. It's great for getting glue off. I spray my scissors with it to get the glue off, whatever. So anyway, I've just sprayed these pieces with just pure alcohol and get them nice and wet. And if you have a big piece, you'd spray that and get it saturated, okay? And then what you're going to do is you're going to take your alcohol, and you either can spray it on here. Well, see, my sprayer's getting clogged, which is, I don't know what the deal is. But you want to put a little bit of alcohol down here, and then you want to take just a few drops or whatever and sprays, or have no idea why my sprayer is doing this, but it's probably because I have my camera on. And it's always best to start out with less, because you can always go back. And I am just gonna, now this is too much for these, so I'm just gonna take this, but just to show you, take a tiny bit, rub it in your hands. I roll it in a ball. Just roll it in a ball. And that will actually, that piece is so tiny you really can't tell, but it dyes your lace. But this is a good way to test, just a tiny bit. Doesn't take much. And you just roll it around and it will dye your lace, okay? That way you're kind of testing to see what color it will turn out to be. Okay, like see, this started out very white, and that pink that I have in here is very almost a hot pink. So if I want this to be toned down, I'm going to have to add other color to it. So but the lace that I wanted to dye, wherever that piece went to, I don't know where it went to now. Okay, I'm just going to cut another one. The lace that I wanted to dye already has kind of a antique-y look to it. So it's going to dye differently than one that is just pure white. Now this is scary because look how hot pink that looks. And also I didn't do what I told you to do, is I didn't put alcohol on it. I didn't get it wet first. So we'll see if this works out or not. Well, it still will, see? So you want to get it nice and saturated with alcohol beforehand. But because of this, and just keep rolling it, you know, spray your hands and the lace or whatever and put alcohol. And what rolling it around does is what you're doing is you're just getting that color everywhere evenly, okay? So now I hope you can see this. What that did is that changed the lace to a pink, which is pretty much the same pink as this that I did. It's just not dry yet. Okay, and because this was already a little bit already kind of a little bit vintage, it wasn't quite as bright. So depending upon what you start with is the color you're going to get. So let's just say that I want to go ahead and do this white piece. Okay, and this is very white, but I want it to turn out closer to this. But my alcohol ink is kind of a bright pink. So if I do it with just the bright pink, then what's going to happen is it's going to turn out pretty much bright pink, and you'll see that. Hold on. So I'm putting some alcohol down here, just pure alcohol. And I wish I could just spray it on there, because let me see if I can get my sprayer to work. Sometimes if you spray alcohol, let me see. We are just not going to cooperate. I don't know what's going on. Anyway, so just take your alcohol. Hopefully your sprayer works. Mine is not working. Do that. Put your alcohol in here. And this is just trial and error. You'll learn how to do it once you do this. But I know that that's going to turn hot pink if I put it in there. So then what I'm going to do is I am going to take my handy dandy brown alcohol ink spray that I made. And this is the same process. I just put pure, I buy alcohol ink in the droppers, and I just put a few drops in here with alcohol, and I use this to all the time to, and I think I put too much brown in there now. I got to put more pink. What this will do is it'll kind of antique that pink, and it'll make it, should make it closer to the color that we actually want. And if it doesn't, then we'll change it up a little bit. But okay, that's still to me a little bit too hot pink. So I'm going to take my alcohol ink and I'm going to spray this a little, just a little. Like I said, you can always add more, but you can't take it away. So okay, that's getting closer to what I want. Getting a lot closer. You see? A lot closer. But I'm going to take just one more one more spritz in there, and I'm going to go like that. Roll it around because that saturates the color. All right, I think we're getting closer. Now see, that started out as very hot pink, and now it's getting closer to this other pink that's a little bit more antique-y. So, I don't know. I think maybe just a tiny bit more. I'm going to spray it in my hand this time. I'm going to dump it around in here. Now, trust me, you will have to wash your hands. I use alcohol on my hands when I get done, and that takes it off pretty quick. So, okay. I think that's probably going to be closer to what we want. All right, let me see. Yep, I think that's it. I think that made it closer to what we want. It's not as hot pink. It toned it down, and it made it very close to the other color, even though we started out with completely two different colors. We started out with a color that was already kind of, you know, antiqued a little bit, and we started out with just a pure white. I mean, this is what we started out with. We started out with that, and then we started out with that. Okay, so we started with that, and we started with that, and we got that, and then we got that. So, see, and these, I mean, these two are very close. If you look at them, I mean, they're not identical, but they're very close. So, I mean, that's what you can do if you have some alcohol ink. And this will dry very, very quickly. I a lot of times use my heat gun, but I don't know if you can tell this or not. If you get too close with your heat gun, if it's nylon, it'll start to burn your lace a little bit. So just be careful with that. But I did want to show you that is how you can you can get the colors that you want. I mean, you know, and I actually think my permanent markers that I used were, I think I got a pack from the dollar store. It had like 8 different colors in them. And then I think I might have had some other ones. Oh, that's another thing. I used dried out markers too. You know how you leave the top off or whatever? Well, the color is actually still in there. It's just dry. And those are great to use. So I'll do a tutorial on that. I mean, I use this alcohol ink if I want to spray some of my pages a certain color or whatever. Or I'll put a stencil on there and spray with it. There's a lot of fun things you can do with that. But I just wanted to show people that you could do that. As I said, I was in the middle of doing it, and I just thought, well, I probably should just turn on my camera because, you know, it's a process I go through, and I just think that people might be interested in it. I don't know. I think the first person I saw do that, and I'm sure lots of people do it, it was Artie Mays. And I think she did it with Distress ink, and it does work with Distress ink also. I just have the alcohol ink, and I know it works really well, especially on the nylon. Cotton will take the color differently. So you just, like I said, you really need to take little tiny pieces and just test your little pieces and see what it's going to take and how it's going to take it. You know, this is using the same color alcohol ink on these two, and we got completely 2 different results there. So you kind of have to, you just have to test it. This is white, pure white right here. And actually, I think I'm going to go ahead. I'll just do this right here so you can see what I'm doing. Let me see if I can find my alcohol ink that I use so you can see. Matter of fact, I just bought some more. I buy the Ranger alcohol ink in the 3-pack in the browns, and this is, what is it called? If there's a certain, I don't know. I got this off. It doesn't say which threesome it is. It has caramel, ginger, and latte in it. And this is what I use to make my little alcohol spray for my browns. The other colors, because I didn't really want to buy a whole bunch of different colors of alcohol ink. I use the brown a lot, and I don't use the other colors that much, and they work just fine making it with my old markers and things. But I do use these a lot, and it just takes a few drops to put in. I think maybe about 5 drops to make this color, and I think I used a combination of ginger and latte on this one. I can't tell you for sure, but you kind of just have to play around with it and see. But I just put a few drops in here with pure alcohol, and that's how I come up with this. And this is my instant. Let's say, for instance, we want to. I have this piece of tracing paper, which, by the way, this works great on tracing paper or vellum that doesn't take color easily. If I just want to instantly kind of age this, and depending upon where you are, you can just take this and spray it on there. And then, you know, just put that aside. And because it's alcohol and not water, this will dry very, very quickly. Very quickly. So that's just something that I use all the time. You know, so I'm not going to go run down and do a whole bunch of dyeing in the middle of doing something. So I use it a lot. Anyway, so let's go ahead. This is a nylon white trim. And I've already tested it. I'm trying to get close to this color, kind of an antique-y white color. Now, not a perfect match, just kind of close to it, and I think I did it. I don't know if you can see that. So anyway, the way I'm going to do that is I'm just going to do it the same way I did it with the other. Spray some alcohol down. And this is where having a glass mat is great. And I know that it gets glare on it when you guys see it. Oh, look, see, the spray is actually working here. So you can see how I normally do it. I try and disperse the color throughout the alcohol that's on there. Make sure you spray your ribbon or whatever you're dyeing first, which I did not do on that one. Get it nice and wet. And the reason you do that is you want the color to disperse evenly. And if it's dry, it won't do that. You'll have blotches, and then you're kind of getting it, you know. So it's nice and wet. You dip it in. Okay. And like I said, less is more here, because you can always add some later. Okay, now I'm going to keep spraying this because I can see that there's some blotches on there. Okay. And then I'm going to just take it and roll it around. If you have to do the rolling part, because otherwise it doesn't disperse it. You know, you want it to, you don't really want, and that's another reason why you don't want to just spray the color. Well, you can spray it on there directly, but it can lead to it being blotchy. Let's just put it that way. So I think that that's kind of the color I want. Let me see. I don't know. I think maybe... yeah, I think that's pretty close. I think that's pretty close. I don't want to make it too dark. And it will dye darker. So I'm going to, you know, just take what's left over on here, roll it around, and you just really, that rolling it around really disperses the color, you know, and gets it all over. So you can see that what we've done is we have taken our very, very white trim and gave it a kind of a antique-y vintage look with just a tiny bit of alcohol and our little alcohol ink. So, and you could, again, make this with a, you know, I guess a brown marker or something. You know, you're really going to have a hard time getting that vintagey kind of, I don't know if that's a word, color with like markers or even food coloring or whatever. That's why I think getting that alcohol ink package with those three colors, it'll get you to the color that you like the best. And you can, honestly, you could take all three of those colors and put each one in a bottle, and I think I'm going to do that because that way I can have more control. This color just tends to be, the mixture of it tends to be close to what I try and get things to, but I can't always reproduce it. So I probably am going to do that and put it in 3 separate bottles. And that way you can just add all 3 colors on your mat and then do whatever. But anyway, let me show you. I think we accomplished. Here, I'm going to dry this a little bit because then you can see that it does dry a little bit. Where did my heat gun go? Oh, here it is. It does dry a little bit darker. I'll just, you know, I mean, this is another money saving tip, but also too, I think what's really cool about it is that you can get things closer to the actual color that you really want it to be. I mean, you know, I used to try and buy laces. Now I try and, you know, find the vintage or antique, but you know, it's more expensive, it's harder to find, and let's face it, you know, you're not going to find all vintage everything. But if you want it to get that look, and you're buying, you know, laces, and you're trying, you know, and they charge more a lot of times for the vintage, or even the vintage looking. Okay, so this way that you can buy the white and just do this, and you're gonna get, you know, maybe you didn't want it that beige, maybe you just wanted a little less. Well, guess what? Then you have some control over that. So, all right, I think that's enough. So you can see it does dry just a tiny bit darker, and I think that we did a pretty good job. I think we accomplished what we were trying to do there. So anyway, all that being said, okay, I did that just so that I could have the lace, the color that I wanted to put on my cover. And so that's where I am with that. And I already sewed around this, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put all the lace on where I think I want it and do all of that, and then decide if I'm going to sew it on or glue it on or whatever. I can't necessarily put all the lace and trim on because the way that I did my cover, I'm going to sew in my signatures here, and I eventually what I'm going to do is I am going to cover that with this. I've already decided I'm going to use that, and that's kind of my process of how I do my cover. But I won't do all those things, but I kind of plan ahead of time, and I know ahead of what I'm going to do. Like, I've decided I'm probably not going to sew all of these trims on. I'm going to probably glue a lot of them on. So, but I can't put this trim on until I put that trim on. And I can't put that trim on until I sew in my signatures. Okay, so we're at a stalemate. So I'm going to probably not do any of these other things. And you know, there's another way you can do this. We could have done the inside part of the cover and glued it on, then sewn in our signatures, and then put the outside on, and it would have covered our strings back here. But I don't normally do that because I usually always put lace or something on the where the binding is. Okay, so that to me, you know, I know they'll peek through there, but I kind of like that look. So I already knew that I was going to do that, but I just wanted to bring up the fact that that is an option. So if I'm not going to sew any more around this, if I'm not going to sew anything, any more trim or anything, and I've sewn in this part, I've sewn around it, the next thing that I would do is I take my scissors, or I can take a distress tool, wherever that is. Let me see if it's in here. Yeah, here it is. You can take your scissors and do this, or a distress tool, and I go and I actually rough up my edges, because you have cardboard in there, and I will rough that up. Okay. Also, if there was any parts that were kind of off a little bit, you could always trim those off and get them. I don't think there was, so I didn't really do that, but I want strings, but not long strings. I'm trying to make it look distressed. That's the goal, okay? Now, I have a distress tool, and I use it, and I like it to be frayed, okay? And when I'm done, I'll go and take those big long pieces. Now the thing is, I made sure there was glue all the way around the edges, and I sewed, so this is not going to come apart, okay? If you're going to do this and not sew, you want to definitely make sure that your ends are, that you put enough glue here, and then they're dry and it's solid, but you can see how that's kind of distressing it. Well, I want that. Now, other people may not want that, but that's what I want. And I'm going to do that all the way around the edges. Okay? Because I am going for that look. That's what I'm trying to do. Okay? So that is the next thing I will do. And then I'll have my edges all distressed. You know, I'll cut off the really long pieces, but for the most part, I want little danglies, and I want it to be distressed. Because that's the look I'm going for. So, you know, like I said, personal preference. Everybody do your thing. This is how I do it. Also too, depending upon what I'm making and the kind of cover that I want, when I did my tutorial, if you refer back to it on the flap, I put the cardboard, or I put the file folder in between all the way through the flap. There are times when I make these when I'm going to have a longer flap where it's like over 50% or whatever, like this. This is a Christmas one that I did that I never got around to making into a journal. I will not put any of the file folder in here. This is just 2 pieces of material right here, and the file folder is just from here to here. And that's a kind of a different way to do it. And I think that's great. It just depends on the look that I'm going to want in the end. In the end, I wind up cutting that off anyway, but I'm just saying that that's something too if you go back to that tutorial. I had already glued in this right here. I'm probably going to go back and sew this in right here and sew right there. But other than that, at this point, the only other thing that I do before I start sewing in my signatures is I decide if I'm going to what trim I want, and am I gonna sew that on? Am I gonna sew that trim on, or am I going to glue it on? And if I'm gonna sew, then this is the time that I would sew it. Okay, and like I said, I can't really sew this on because I'm going to be putting this on after I sew in my signatures. So I'm not going to do that, okay? And I'm probably not going to sew it here on the ends. So the only thing left for me to do at this point would be to sew this and this around here. This is just a pocket that I made. And I'm going to add lace here, but I'm not going to sew that. I sewed around here. I've got it all kind of beat up. Now what you can do, and it's probably not going to show on this one that much because I'm going to have it all covered with trim. But I am going to show you what you can do on your cover is you can go around if you want a distressed look and take your distress ink and do this all the way around. I do think most of mine's going to be covered at this point in my mind. I think that's what I'm doing. But I just thought I would show you that. And also too, you can make sure as you're doing this, if there's any folder sticking out or whatever, you can cut that down. But if you do this, also what it's going to do, your folders in between there, and it'll antique that, and it'll blend in, and just give it a kind of a further, weathered kind of look. Again, personal preference, if that's what you like, But see, like there, at the very edge, if there's anything showing, it's just like how you do around your pieces, your cardstock. You're just basically, if there's any white showing, then what you're doing is you're distressing it, okay? So anyway, I would do that, and then again, sew in any trim I think I'm going to need. And then at that point, what I would do is, of course, get your papers ready and then sew in your signatures. And like I said, I'm not going to go ahead and video that because I just did that with the other videos, so the other tutorial. So anyway, I'm going to leave it there and go ahead and go to the next point, which would be doing a little decorating in this journal, and I'm hoping to get this journal done in the next 4 or 5 days, so that way, you know, it'll be done in time for Valentine's Day. And I just kind of want to have an example out there so that people can see. And I realize that not everybody's going to get their hands on this beautiful fabric, but there are some nice fabrics out there that are Valentine's-y that you could do the same thing. Anyway, I don't really know what else I can add to this. Oh, one more thing. I do want to show you that when I'm doing my cover, even though I am not going to attach all this now, the way that I do it is what I call auditioning. I just take pieces of things and I put it down. Like, I think I'm going to put that up there. I think I'm going to put this down here. Okay, I'm not putting anything on there yet. Okay, I think I'm going to put that down there. Then I think I took a piece here, and this is just to give me an idea. I'll cut off a piece and work with it. I think I'm going to use this to put that down there. And then I think I'm going to put, all of this is subject to change. Okay, I think I'm going to put the pink over here. And then I think I'm going to have the pink over here. And that is what I think I'm going to do on my cover. Okay, and then I'll decide, well, do I want a focal point, and what do I want? Because I may want to sew that on. Most of the time I don't, though. I just sew the actual piece. But I think on this, because I don't want to cover this material up that much, I think I'm going to put a book plate in the middle of it. And then I decided, I think what I'm going to do, and this is subject to change too, because I think I have another one of these that I may use. But I may and this is too where you may want to decide what type of closure you have. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do something like this, and then have a ribbon closure with an eyelet, but I'll probably just put the eyelet, going through here on the top, and then have some sort of a key dangling or something from it. But that's where I think I'm at now, and that's kind of the process that I go through. And partly the reason I do it at this point is I'm trying to decide what I have to sew on and what I'm not going to sew on, because obviously after, it's a little too late to do that. So anyway, that's where I'm at. And like I said, I'll sew in the signatures, and then I'll give you some updates here and there and show you some things that I'm doing in this journal. And I'm still finishing up my other romantic journal that I'm doing. But this one is obviously blatantly Valentine's Day, so I will definitely get this one done, hopefully in the next 5 days. But I am working in both of those journals at the same time. So anyway, thank you for joining me. And if you got some value out of this, please like and subscribe, so I know whether I should keep doing these or not. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day.